If you're an HR professional who works hard to fill roles within your company, keep employees engaged, and build company culture, welcome to America Back to Work, where dreams only work if we do. We'll share wide-ranging issues surrounding pre-employment background screening, HR topics such as recruiting, hiring, labor trends, and company culture, as well as broader HR-influenced business topics such as customer experience, service level excellence, and protecting what matters through best practices in prevention, protection, and corporate security. America Back to Work is brought to you by S2 Verify. Here's your host, Arnette Heintze.
Welcome to America Back to Work, brought to you by S2 Verify. Chris is to help you hire with confidence and manage insider risk. I'm your host, Arnette Heintze. Thank you for joining. Today, I'm excited to be joined by Rob Whalen. Rob is the co-founder and CEO of PTO Exchange. This is the first platform that helps employees unlock the full value of unused PTO. I think this is a very important topic today for HR professionals and all levels of leadership, because as a benefit typically falls in HR wheelhouse, Rob is going to explain some of the myth-busting issues for us in this area, as well as an important question: what role does money actually play in competing for top talent? Rob, would you mind telling us a little bit more about your background and the compelling theory behind PTO Exchange?
Yeah, Arnette. By the way, thanks for having me, first of all.
Absolutely.
And so my background is I was educated in accounting, so I graduated with an accounting degree. And then after that, went into technology, selling semiconductors was my first job. And then software, built my own software company, the first one. And then went to work for other technologies and security companies. So working with engineers, both in a hardware and a software mode. So, I'm educated in accounting, so numbers, balance sheets, net income statements, journal entries, extremely familiar with them. And because I run my own companies and I have that degree, but I also know a lot about technology and just how it's developed, how it's utilized, how people leverage it. So, and how this idea came to play was, entrepreneurs kind of hang out with entrepreneurs, birds of a feather type mode. And I had a dinner at my house with a bunch of entrepreneurs just sharing ideas. And that's where the genesis of this came up, really came about when two of us who worked for Cisco Systems left the company. And as we walked out the door, we got a very large check from the PTO that had been accrued on the books of the company. And as we just kind of sat there drinking wine and, we just thought about what we could have done with that money while we were at the company and what that would have done for the employee experience, what it would have done for us and our families at the time. And that was kind of the aha moment when we started to say, boy, if you could use it to take your family on a trip that you maybe didn't want to afford or couldn't afford, right? You could have had an experience as a family with this money and just utilize it differently. And that's when we started I started to work on the problem.
Yeah. In HR circles, there's a discussion about the myth of PTOs. Can you talk about that, what that means, what the implications are there, and help us better appreciate that?
Yeah. The myth comes from employees and people not really understanding accounting and just how companies operate from a financial standpoint. And I think that's where the myth is. It's just the misunderstanding and not well educated on finance. And I think that they don't understand how it's accrued, how it's tracked, and just how it operates on the balance sheet. I do think that they understand how it's utilized, right? Because you take PTO and you leave and then you get paid, right? But at the end of the day, I think that's the myth that we see. And so people just think of it as time off. They don't think of it as liability on a company's balance sheets or being accrued, things like that. And because they don't have that understanding and understand they're missing out on part of their compensation and, just how they're compensated as a whole with all their benefits.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you share a little insight into how convertible benefits help reduce company costs and, in fact, minimize turnover?
Yeah. So convertible benefits in its definition is the ability to take the value of benefits that are being provided to your employees and allowing them to self-direct it in a way that meets their needs. So you're meeting your employees where you're at. And when you're able to do this, especially in today's employee base of multi-generations in the workforce, just a very diverse workforce that you're dealing with, there becomes a lot of dollars that I'm spending on benefits to be convertible in a way that our employees can self-direct the value to meet their needs. Okay.
Yeah.
And by doing that, what occurs is the employees feel included. They also feel like they're being dealt with as an adult and met with at the place where they are in their life. And so your turnover is much lower, okay, because of that ability to self-direct. Now, the cost savings piece of it, Arnette, is a little different. And this is kind of where you need to this is where the myth kind of comes into play, okay? The cost savings is derived by a little formula called the time value of money, okay? Present value, future value, okay? Mm-hmm. And as PTO is accrued on the books, it's accrued at your annual salary rate. And for a company to reduce cost, right, a lot of companies in their PTO policy, they'll allow you to roll over some of your time, okay? So maybe I'm just going to use some numbers here, $20,000 a year. This year, I accrued 3 weeks, but I didn't use 1 week. That 1 week rolled over to next year. Next year, I get to accrue another 3 weeks, but now I'm making $30,000. So that 1 week that was accrued in the prior year by the company for $20,000, that company had to go in and make a journal entry to right size that liability to now represent $30,000. Okay. So as a company, as a CFO, if I'm able to allow my employees to utilize their benefits in the year that they were accrued and at the rate they were accrued and budgeted for, then I'm actually saving money over time. Okay.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And the other thing you also need to look at is benefits, not just PTO, all benefits. There's a lot of money in those benefits, and every employee roughly uses about 50%, half of the benefit dollars that a company spends. And that's inclusive of insurance and 401k matching and PTO and all of those things that derive what people don't quite understand, their total compensation.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, that's great. Over the last 10 years, I think there's been a lot of companies, considering the use of unlimited time off. I know in the previous company I built, a professional services company, we went to that unlimited time off concept about 10 years ago. And I think the employees embraced it. But can you tell us, is that a good idea, or is it a difficult, challenging idea for companies? What's your experience in this space?
Yeah. So I'm going to turn the tables on you, Arnette. Okay.
All right.
I'm going to ask you a few questions. Okay. First of all, I'll just state it. I don't think it's a good idea for unlimited PTO.
Okay.
Okay. But I'm going to start with just a few questions to you. Do you have unlimited time? You as a person?
No.
Absolutely not. If your time off is now up to your manager, and do you think that manager is going to ignore their biases, personal biases?
No, I don't think they'll ignore their personal biases.
No, I don't think they do in life, right? And then the other thing is, if you're a long-term employee but you have always been asked or tasked with projects that take a substantial amount of time than others. And because of this, you can't take the time off. But Joe, who is just hired, takes 6 weeks off because he is not overtasked at the time. Is that fair and equitable?
I'd say on that employee's point of view that is not able to take as much as his colleague, he'd say absolutely not fair. So, yeah.
Right. So when you take unlimited and you say, I'm going to let my people have unlimited time, first of all, that doesn't exist. It's a little bit of a deceptive word, okay? And you're selling something that, to me, does not define paid time off and does not define quality or inclusivity or all those things, right? And you're putting it into the hands of some biases, okay? So, no, I don't think it's a good idea to do that just from a cultural standpoint within an organization. Now, that being said, the reason why unlimited PTO is what it is today, Arnette, is it is the unintended consequences of a poorly written law in California. And that law was supposed to protect your PTO, but in essence, because it was poorly written, it left a loophole there that allowed companies to then create this deceptive benefit that actually is not a benefit because there's no accrual, there's no tracking, and there's no value to it. Okay. And it goes back to that myth that I was talking about. If you believe that, you can just take unlimited time, then you'll find that you won't get the time that you actually are, that you would be allotted if you actually accrued the time.
Yeah. So as a firm out there trying to help employees realize these benefits, if you come across an organization that has unlimited PTO, how does PTO Exchange work? How do you quantify that?
Yeah, great question. And by the way, thanks for asking it. So PTO Exchange is one of our products. We have a platform of more flexible benefits, convertible benefits. Okay. So in that case, that company will not leverage our PTO Exchange product or platform. Okay. What they will leverage, and which we do sell, is something called an LPA exchange, which is called a life planning account exchange product. And that, in essence, is the ability for our customers to give a certain amount of money to every employee, and they allow them to self-direct those dollars or that value for mental well-being. It could be for physical well-being, social well-being, financial well-being. Okay. Again, companies are looking for ways that they can take benefits that they have in dollars and let their employees self-direct it for needs, individualized needs. And we do that through our life planning account exchange.
Yep.
Okay.
And I also recognize that your company talks about using paid time off for other things, and that this concept can level a playing field for the organization, or in fact, maybe create a more inclusive environment. How does that work?
Yeah. So as far as inclusivity, right? It means to be included. Okay. And that really is, when someone feels included, it means that you're meeting them and their needs where they are and who they are in their place in life. Okay. And convertible benefits, because you're taking those dollars and allowing them to self-direct them for those needs where they're at, you actually make the employee feel more included, more accepted, because they're able to actually address their individual needs. Okay. And that's the whole essence around convertible benefits, is making everyone feel included, because everyone has different needs and everyone is going through the life cycle at different times. And what we say is life's transitions, where we need to meet people where life's transitions are. And they don't show up at open enrollment, Arnette. And then, where we open enroll and say, we're going to have this benefit the whole year. And what I say to that is, during that year, things come up, and all of a sudden, if I have convertible benefits, I'm able to address that situation. But if I don't, now I'm stuck with the one-size-fits-all benefit package, and I don't feel like my company is supporting me. Okay.
So, one of the other elements I understand with a growing diverse workforce that we have, that there's developing needs of various types. And how are you seeing the workforce today using PTO in these different ways?
Yeah, you're 100% correct. There's a million new benefits. Well, I'll just going to go back there. A million defined benefits that people are starting to come up with. What I think is really funny is if you go to these corporations like Microsoft and you go, they just went to unlimited PTO, but yet they still have parental paid leave, or, they still have absence, sick leave. They still have, and I'm kind of thinking, if you have unlimited PTO, you don't need any of those other leaves. You have unlimited PTO. It should be addressing every situation. But instead, it's just kind of our societal nature right now. We want to define every micro benefit that we have. Okay. And what I say is, awesome. That's what I'm talking about. But if you have convertible benefits, you're able to address those micro needs of every individual, which again goes to address everyone's different. And to support the generational and diversified workforce, you need to have flexibility in your benefits. And when you kind of look at the cost of benefits, it all kind of comes down as the common denominator is dollars that a company is providing you to support your life and yourself. Okay. That's outside of your salary or bonus or things like that. Okay. And that's how I see things.
Yeah. So when it comes to, I think just hearing your response to that question, then money can actually play a role in competing for top talent today.
It does.
So
money does. Yeah. So Arnette, money does play a big role in top talent. Okay. But it's not the only thing. We can't, and I'm going to give you some examples. I run a small company, right? We have 20 employees, 22 employees. I'm in Seattle, Washington. I compete with Microsoft. I compete with Amazon. I compete with these companies that have incredible benefits. Okay. And I have some of the best engineering around. And you might say, well, how did you get that? Well, I think there is money. I think there's the ability to support your employees with benefits that meet them where their needs. I also think there's a purpose. Okay. I think those three things provide the best stool for employees and for you to be able to attract and retain employees. They need to feel valued. They need to feel like not only are they valued, but what they do is valuable, right? They need to feel like what their work is doing is helping a much larger initiative on a broader scale. And I have found that helps me, not have to pay the top dollar on salary. Okay. I have to be competitive, but not have to pay the top dollar and get some of the best talent.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, your ideal situation is finding an organization, a company that's looking to enhance the range of benefits they can offer their employees, and therefore they would engage you to kind of help structure that, correct?
Yeah. So we look for a type of company, companies that really feel responsible to their employees and really appreciate their employees. And I'll even take it one further. The most intimate thing a company can do is expense you. Okay. People don't understand this. If I expense your PTO through the net income statement and put it on my balance sheet, guess what I did, Arnette? I gave you a value.
Mm-hmm.
The minute I stop doing that, I don't really value you.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know a lot of people think an expense is a bad thing, but as an employee, a company expense. If you're that company expense, that's the most intimate thing that company can give you. And it's really interesting in that way. So we look at companies that way. We also look for companies, because not every company can do unlimited PTO.
Right.
In fact, about 85% can't do it. And I'll tell you why, because they derive their value from the person being there. Hospitals can't have a doctor go on unlimited PTO, can't leave, they got to be scheduled, got to have nurses. You can't build Boeing planes without people there wiring them, riveting them. They can't have unlimited. So if a company derives their value from that person being there, consultancy, right, because I bill hours, then they accrue the time. And because they accrue the time, then the value there is there to be leveraged in a convertible benefit like modality.
Yep. Well, Rob, your insights have been tremendous today, and thank you for your time. One of the questions I'll ask every guest before we sign off, since is to verify as a pre-employment background screening organization. If we ran an S2 verified check on you, would there be any surprising discovery for us?
I don't think so. Like I said earlier, I said we do this to all of our employees just to meet our SOC 2 every year. So I get that viewpoint.
Yep, and that's the best practice, doing it every year. I can tell you, there's not a lot of firms that will do it every year, but that is definitely a best practice. So before we sign off, would you please tell our audience where they can find more about you and PTO Exchange and the best way to follow you?
Yeah, you can follow me via LinkedIn, or you can follow PTO Exchange via our LinkedIn or any of our socials. Visit us at ptoexchange.com. And you can reach out to me at info@ptoexchange.com, and love to connect with people.
Rob, thank you so much. I can't thank you enough for the insights you've given us on this concept, and hopefully for the HR professionals who join in our show from time to time, this will be a new avenue for them to check out. And for our audience, please tune in next week for The Future of Work. I will be joined by Rags Gupta. He's the president. Rags is a 5-time startup founder, advisor, investor, and author of 1 to 10. He will share insights on workplace trends, including when it makes sense for people to work in the office rather than remotely. And it goes without saying, let's get America back to work, because dreams only work if we do.
If you want to stay abreast of HR, recruiting, and hiring trends, tips, and tools, make sure you subscribe to America Back to Work. If you enjoyed this episode, leave us a rating and a review.